In 1396, a Chinese emperor ordered 5,000 women skinned alive. Their skins were stuffed with straw and nailed to walls across the kingdom as a warning. That emperor slept just fine that night. Let's start with number 10, keel hauling. Imagine you are a sailor in the 1600s. You steal something on board, or maybe you just talk back to the wrong officer, and the captain decides you need to learn a lesson. They strip your clothes off and tie a rope around your body. That rope loops underneath the entire ship, from one side to the other. Then, they throw you overboard. You hit the freezing water and immediately get dragged underneath the hull. And the bottom of that ship is covered in razor-sharp barnacles, thousands of them, caked on like broken glass. As the crew pulls the rope, your body scrapes across every single one. The barnacles rip your skin apart. Your back, your chest, your face, everything gets shredded. And you cannot even scream because you are underwater, holding your breath, praying you do not drown before they pull you up on the other side. The Dutch Navy made keel hauling an official punishment and used it from 1560 all the way to 1853. In 1652, a sailor named Jan Blank was keel hauled, whipped 150 times, and then enslaved for 2 years. His crime? He had deserted his ship for 9 days. And if the captain pulled you up and decided your injuries were not bad enough, they sent you back down again. Some men were keel-hauled 3 or 4 times in a row. The ones who survived carried scars so deep they never fully healed. Their backs looked like raw meat for months afterward. In 1673, a Dutch commander named Cornelis Evertsen ordered the most graphic keel hauling on record to punish 2 sailors who had committed murder. The event was treated like a public show. The entire crew gathered to watch, and the bodies were left hanging from the yard arm afterward, as a reminder to everyone on board. Sharks were another danger. In warm waters, the blood from the barnacle cuts could attract them. Some sailors were pulled back up, missing pieces of themselves that had nothing to do with the barnacles. But keel hauling at least ended when you got back on deck. The next punishment on this list could last for days. Here comes number 9, bamboo torture. Bamboo can grow up to 3 feet in a single day. That is fast enough to watch it move. And someone in Asia looked at that growth rate and thought of the worst possible way to use it. The victim was stripped and tied down directly above a patch of freshly cut bamboo shoots. The tips of young bamboo are sharp, almost like wooden spears, and they grow straight up with surprising force. Over the next 2 or 3 days, those bamboo shoots slowly pushed their way into the victim's body, through the skin, through the muscle, and eventually through the organs. The victim could feel the bamboo pressing harder and harder, knowing there was absolutely nothing they could do to stop it. During World War II, stories spread that Japanese soldiers used bamboo torture against Allied prisoners of war. For decades, people debated whether bamboo could actually do what the survivors described. Then, in 2008, the television show Mythbusters tested it. They placed a block of ballistic gelatin, which has similar strength to human flesh, above growing bamboo shoots. In less than 3 days, the bamboo had pushed completely through it. Nobody had to lift a finger. The plant did all the work. And the victim had to lie there and feel every inch of it. But at least bamboo torture was somewhat rare. The next punishment was practiced openly for centuries. Next one is number 8, sawing. This one is exactly what it sounds like, and it is worse than you are imagining right now. The victim was hung upside down, usually from a wooden frame or between 2 posts. Their legs were spread apart. And then 2 executioners placed a large saw between the victim's legs and started cutting downward. The reason they hung you upside down was simple and sickening. With your head below your body, blood rushed to your brain. That kept you conscious for far longer than you would be if you were standing up. Victims reportedly stayed alive and aware all the way until the saw reached their abdomen. Sawing was documented across medieval Europe and parts of Asia. During the Spanish Inquisition, it was used against people accused of heresy. In China, historical records describe sawing as being on the same level of cruelty as Ling Qi. The Emperor of Wu, during the Three Kingdoms period, reportedly had a government official sawed in half after the official executed a thief who had been stealing on behalf of the emperor's favorite concubine. The official was just doing his job. It did not matter. And here is what makes sawing so disturbing beyond the obvious. It required no special equipment. Just a saw, some rope, and something to hang you from. Any village, any army, any person with a grudge could carry it out. The next entry, though, required a very specific and very creative piece of equipment. Let's move to number 7, the Judas cradle. Medieval Europe had a talent for building devices specifically designed to cause the maximum amount of pain possible. The Judas cradle might be the worst of all of them. It was a tall stool with a sharp, pyramid-shaped point on the seat. The victim was stripped naked, lifted into the air with ropes and pulleys, and then slowly lowered onto the point. The tip pressed into the body with the full weight of the victim pushing down on it. The ropes controlled how fast or slow the descent was. Sometimes weights were tied to the victim's feet to increase the pressure. If the torturer wanted information, they would raise the victim off the point, let them recover just enough to be able to speak, ask their question, and if they did not like the answer, lower them back down again. This could go on for hours, sometimes days. Infection was almost guaranteed. Even if the victim survived the torture itself, the wounds almost always became infected, and many died within a week from the contamination alone. There was no way to keep the device clean between uses, and the torturers did not care to try. The Judas cradle was used during the Spanish Inquisition and across parts of medieval Italy and Germany. And unlike some punishments that were meant to kill, this one was specifically designed to keep you alive and talking. Speaking of keeping people alive through pain, the Assyrians perfected that concept over 2,000 years earlier. Let's talk about number 6, flaying alive. Flaying means removing the skin from a living person. And the Assyrian Empire, which ruled much of the Middle East starting around 900 BCE, turned it into a regular practice. Assyrian kings would flay captured enemies and then display the skins on the walls of conquered cities. Some skins were stretched out and hung from poles. Others were nailed directly to the city gates. The message was impossible to miss. But the Assyrians were not the only ones. In 1396, the Hongwu Emperor of China's Ming dynasty ordered the flaying of 5,000 women. Their skins were stuffed with straw and mounted on walls throughout the kingdom. This was not a battlefield punishment. This was a political statement. A skilled executioner could keep the victim alive through most of the process. The skin was removed slowly, starting with areas that had less blood flow, like the back and the arms. The goal was to take as much skin off as possible before the victim went into shock. There are even accounts of flaying using mercury. The victim would be buried up to the neck, 2 cuts would be made in the scalp, and liquid mercury would be poured in. The weight of the mercury would cause the skin to separate from the flesh underneath. When the victim thrashed in agony, they would reportedly slip out of their own skin. The Aztecs also practiced flaying as part of their religious rituals, skinning sacrificial victims and wearing the skins during ceremonies dedicated to the god Sipe Totec, the flayed one. Priests would wear the victim's skin for 20 days as it rotted on their body. This went on for centuries before the Spanish arrived and was considered sacred, not criminal. What makes flaying so uniquely horrifying is that the skin is the body's largest organ. It is packed with nerve endings. Every square inch that gets removed sends a fresh wave of pain directly to the brain. There is no way to go numb to it. The body fights it the entire time. But flaying at least had the decency to kill you relatively quickly compared to what comes next. Here comes number 5, rat torture. A metal bucket, a live rat, and a flame. That is all it took to create one of the most psychologically terrifying punishments ever invented. The victim was strapped down on their back, unable to move. A metal container, usually a bucket or a cage, was placed on their stomach with a live rat trapped inside. Then the executioner heated the outside of the metal with a torch. As the metal got hotter, the rat panicked. It had one way to escape the heat, and that was down, through the victim's body. The rat would claw and bite and gnaw its way through the victim's flesh and into the abdomen, desperately trying to get away from the burning metal above it. This form of torture was used in medieval Europe and reportedly in parts of China. It left very little external evidence compared to other methods, which made it a favorite tool for interrogation. The wounds were internal, hidden from view, but the pain was beyond anything the victim could endure. The psychological element made it even worse. The victim could hear the rat scratching and squealing. They could feel it moving on their stomach, and they knew exactly what was about to happen the moment the flame touched the metal. Some prisoners confessed before the rat even broke through the skin. The anticipation was enough. But this next punishment was not about information. It was about sending a message that your crime was so disgusting that even your death had to be humiliating. Let's move to number 4. Poena Cullei, the punishment of the sack. Ancient Rome had a punishment specifically designed for one crime: killing your own parents. If you were convicted of parricide in Rome, you were sewn inside a large leather sack. But you were not alone in that sack. They put a dog, a monkey, a snake, and a rooster in there with you. Then the entire sack, with you and 4 panicking animals inside, was thrown into a river. The animals, terrified and trapped in darkness, would attack anything they could reach. You would be clawed, bitten, and constricted by the snake while simultaneously drowning. If the animals did not kill you, the water did. Emperor Hadrian reportedly modified the punishment to make it even worse. If no river was nearby, the sack was thrown into a local arena with wild beasts instead. Either way, the outcome was the same. The symbolic meaning behind each animal has been debated for centuries. Some scholars believe the dog represented shamelessness, the rooster symbolized the killer's unnaturalness, the snake stood for treachery, and the monkey represented the mockery of human nature. Poena Cullei was practiced in Rome from the earliest days of the Republic well into the imperial period. It lasted for hundreds of years, and nobody ever thought to question whether it was too much. Because if you killed your own parents, the Romans believed no punishment could be too much. We are in the top 3 now, and these final entries are the ones that kept entire civilizations awake at night. If you made it this far, you are clearly built differently. Hit subscribe because we cover history's darkest stories every single week. And the top 3 punishments on this list, they make everything you just heard sound almost tame. Next one is number 3. The Quaresima, 40 days of torture. In 1354, 2 brothers named Bernabo and Galeazzo Visconti seized power in Milan, Italy. And to make sure nobody ever challenged them, they created a punishment so extreme it became legendary across Europe. They called it the Quaresima. The word means Lent in Italian because it lasted exactly 40 days. And every single one of those days included a different form of torture. On the first day, the victim had their eyes gouged out. Over the following days, they lost their nose, their lips, their ears, their fingers, their toes. Each body part removed one at a time, with a rest day in between so the victim would not die too quickly. Then came the flaying, the stretching on the rack, the beating on the wheel, and the dislocating of every joint in the body. 40 days of escalating horror with just enough medical care to keep the heart beating. The Visconti brothers were kind enough to give their victims every other day off from the torture. Not out of mercy, to make sure the body recovered just enough to feel the next round of pain at full intensity. Bernabo Visconti's coat of arms was literally a snake eating a man. That tells you everything you need to know about who he was. The Quaresima was reserved for traitors and political enemies, but in a city ruled by men like the Viscontis, the definition of enemy was whatever they wanted it to be. 2 left, and the next one was not invented by tyrants. It was used by an entire empire against one of the most famous people who ever lived. Let's talk about number 2. Crucifixion. Everyone knows the name, but very few people understand just how agonizing crucifixion actually was. The victim's arms were stretched out and nailed through the wrists to a horizontal wooden beam. The feet were nailed to a vertical post, and then the cross was raised upright with the victim hanging from it. Death did not come from the nails. Death came from suffocation. With your arms stretched wide and your body hanging, the muscles around your rib cage were under constant strain. To breathe, you had to push yourself up using your nailed feet, which sent bolts of pain through your legs with every breath. Eventually, your legs gave out. You could no longer push up. Your chest locked, and you slowly suffocated while hanging in the open air, fully conscious, in front of a crowd. This process could take anywhere from 6 hours to several days. Roman executioners sometimes broke the victim's legs to speed up the suffocation. They called this the crucifixion, and it was considered an act of mercy. The Romans crucified thousands of people over the centuries. After the slave rebellion led by Spartacus in 71 BCE, over 6,000 captured rebels were crucified along the road from Rome to Capua. The crosses lined the road for over 100 miles, one body after another, left to rot as a warning to anyone who thought about resisting Rome. The bodies were left on the crosses even after death. Crows and vultures would pick the flesh clean while travelers walked past. The Romans wanted you to see it. They wanted you to smell it. They wanted the image burned into your memory so you would never even think about rebellion. According to biblical accounts, Jesus of Nazareth endured approximately 6 hours on the cross before dying. That was considered a relatively short crucifixion. Others lasted 2, 3, even 4 days in the blazing sun, exposed to the elements, with no food or water, dying one labored breath at a time. Crucifixion was eventually abolished by Emperor Constantine in the 4th century CE, after Christianity became the religion of the empire. But for over 500 years before that, it was Rome's go-to punishment for slaves, criminals, and rebels. And now, number 1. The punishment that combined physical destruction with spiritual annihilation in a way no other method on this list could match. And the last one is number 1. The 5 punishments of ancient China. Long before lingqi, long before any of the medieval torture devices of Europe, ancient China had a system of punishment so thorough and so brutal that it destroyed the entire concept of a person. The 5 punishments, established during the Xia dynasty over 4,000 years ago, were applied in order. Each one is worse than the last. First was tattooing the face, a permanent mark that told everyone you were a criminal for the rest of your life. You could never hide it. Every person you met for the rest of your days would know what you had done. Second was cutting off the nose. Breathing became a struggle. Your face was destroyed. And in a culture where maintaining the integrity of the body was a sacred duty, this was considered a spiritual violation as much as a physical one. Third was amputation of the feet. You could no longer walk. You could no longer work. You became completely dependent on others for survival, which in ancient China was considered a fate worse than death. Fourth was castration. Your ability to continue your family line was destroyed. In a society where ancestors and descendants were the foundation of spiritual life, this was the equivalent of erasing your future and your family's future at the same time. And fifth was death. But by the time death came, the prisoner had already been tattooed, mutilated, crippled, and stripped of everything that made them a person. Death was not the punishment. Death was a relief. The Prime Minister Li Si suffered all 5 punishments in 208 BCE after being framed for treason. Every single stage was carried out in front of a crowd. After the 5 punishments were complete, his body was cut in half at the waist. What makes the 5 punishments the #1 entry on this list is not just the physical pain, it is the system behind it. This was not one angry ruler lashing out. This was an organized, government-approved, multi-step process designed to erase a human being piece by piece. Body, identity, future, and spirit, all gone, in order, on purpose. And it lasted for over 2,000 years before it was reformed. Emperor Wen of the Han Dynasty eventually softened some of these punishments after a young woman named Chunyu Tiying wrote him a letter begging for her father's life. She offered to become a court slave if the emperor would spare her father from the 5 punishments. The emperor was so moved that he modified the system. But even after the reforms, the spirit of the 5 punishments echoed through Chinese justice for centuries. The idea that punishment should destroy not just the body, but the soul of the criminal never fully went away. And that is what makes it the most barbaric system on this list. It was not one act of cruelty. It was a philosophy of destruction,